Today we're here to discuss the 3 top tips on how to make the perfect espresso martini. Specifically, how to get that crema on top, that really nice thick crema that goes hand in hand with an espresso martini. Now, it's not going to be so much about the recipe. I'm using an equal part recipe just to show how these tips work in the espresso martini and how you can make a great crema. Okay, tip number 1 is to make sure you use a good quality coffee. Doesn't necessarily mean you have to use fresh extracted coffee from a coffee machine, from an expensive unit. You can always use a cold drip coffee, which is actually great for making lots of espresso martinis. So if you're having a party or if you're attending bar and you're quite busy making a lot of espresso martinis, a cold drip is great. A cold brew concentrate, that also works really well. And I should actually mention the difference between the two. So a cold brew concentrate is a strong cold brew coffee, and a cold brew is essentially coffee steeped in water. It's like tea, but using coffee instead. And cold drip is using one of those really elaborate glass bong looking apparatuses, and the ice cold water slowly drips through the coffee grind and takes 24 hours to make. So there's a little bit of variation between how they're made, but they're essentially cold extracted coffee. Today I'm using freshly brewed hot coffee in my espresso martinis. Either way, make sure you use a good quality coffee. If it's too weak, it's gonna make a shit crema. So, let's get started. So let's get started making these drinks. I am going to use the same coffee across both of these, because fortunately, I don't have any shit coffee in the house. But it'll go to show the next 2 tips, how they work and how it's implemented to make a better crema in your espresso martini. And of course, fresh ingredients, quality ingredients all the time. This recipe I'm just doing equal parts. So espresso, Mr. Black cold brew coffee liqueur, and vodka. This one actually comes from Cut Hill Distillery, which is a local distillery. I'll add 30 ml, 1 ounce to both of these. And then this is where tip number 2 comes into play. Make sure you use larger ice. I'm going to exaggerate and use a really large piece of ice to kind of exaggerate the impact that it has on the drink. But as long as you use like 25 ml, 1 inch cubes, that's probably ideal. I'll leave a link in the description below to some ice molds that are absolutely perfect for making cocktails. But yes, essentially 1 inch cubes or bigger will make a better crema. If you use small shit ice, it's gonna make it watery and it's just not gonna work as well. There are actually quite a lot of bars that do prefer to shake with 1 large cube and a couple of little ones. These are about 1 inch, as opposed to pebble ice. So to compare so far, pebble ice versus large ice. Tip number 3, how you shake your cocktail. Now it just needs to be shaken for about 10 to 12 seconds, it's a relatively short period, and your key focus is to agitate the ice from one end of the tin to the other, back and forth. So it doesn't necessarily have to be a super hard shake, so I'm not going to shake it as hard as I normally do. I'm going to be a little bit more gentle, just to show that as long as you hit from one end to the other, then it should be, fingers crossed, you should be able to make a nice crema. So 10 seconds. That was about 10 seconds, wasn't it, Kat? Sure. So I really didn't shake it that hard. I could have given it a lot more. And now, to say if I wasn't to shake it properly, if I kind of shook it like this, it's also got the pebble ice. I'm not really concentrating on trying to agitate ice from end to end. Or some people kind of, when they're first shaking, they do these ones. As you can see, there's a big difference. So the size of the ice and how you shake it definitely makes a difference in your crema in an espresso martini. This seems to be dissipating quite quickly, whereas I think, just by the looks of it, this Espresso Martini, the crema will probably last a lot longer. There's a lot finer bubbles. It definitely looks like a thicker crema in comparison to this one. And you can see on camera from there, it's worlds apart. So I hope you found today's video useful. Just remember to use good quality coffee, larger ices preferred, and agitate it whilst you shake from end to end for at least 10 to 12 seconds, and you should make a beautiful Espresso Martini. Cheers.